So, welcome everybody to episode 19 of the HCBiz show. Today we covered the statewide debate that's been going on around the digital health space after comments from the AMA CEO. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that, but I think we kicked it around pretty good in the tweet chat. And we've got Steve Sisko on, who was in attendance at the AHIP conference last week. And I'm pretty interested in getting some of his thoughts on that. And Michael, I didn't even ask you, were you at the AHIP by any chance?
I was not, but I was following a lot of the Twitter chatter and looking forward to the summary on it, because I know there's a lot of touch points to, data IT that could be leveraged strategically going forward.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. Well, then we'll direct these questions mostly at Steve, and I mean, obviously there are going to be topics that we all have thoughts on. Anyone who wants to jump on or chime in, please feel free to do so. So the first thing I want to ask. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
One thing I wanted to get Steve's impression on is the whole this disruption in the payment side, and what came up at AHIP about these technology players, these technology startups going into the health insurance business, like Oscar Health and
maybe it's my connection. I don't know. Rats.
I can still hear you, Steve. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Okay.
Well, I've lost everyone.
We can hear you. So my point was, one thing I wanted to talk with Steve about, and what happened at the conference, if it came up, is how these other entries into the insurance industry are disrupting the industry, such as Oscar Health or Collective Health, or a couple others that are bringing in technology standards as well.
Chuck, I see myself and I can hear myself. Don and Michael dropped off. So I don't know if anyone can hear me or not. Oh, you can hear me? Oh, okay. Well,
yes.
I don't know if you had a question for me there or what. Okay, so shoot. Type questions. Yeah, give me a question here. I don't know. So what is AHIP? Well, AHIP is the hymns of the payer world. I mean, basically for America's health insurance plans, it's a lobbying organization largely. But again, I look at it as the hymns for, health plans and payers.
Although certainly, now I got nobody. I think it might just be me.
I think I never left there is what it was. Yeah, now I see just Don off. But so who attends that conference, huh? Yeah. Well, health plan execs, Hey, Joe.
All right, I can see you but not hear you, Joe. And I can hear Steve.
I tell you, sometimes this tech can be really frustrating, huh?
Yeah. Or the user error. Sorry, I didn't turn on my mic.
Yeah, and I got a really good internet connection, so I think. But anyhow, a lot of 4,000 people there, I guess. Mostly health plan execs, vendors. As usual. Some associations I've noticed, the Joint Commission, which was, JACO or whatever in the past, hospitals. Now it's just the Joint Commission, certainly the merging of providers and payers under, the ACA and all that is bringing, former adversaries, I suppose, mixing the dark and the bright for a nice shade of gray in the middle, which we'll probably have to deal with for a few years.
Yeah, Steve, we went together to AHIP last year. What struck me most, it was my first AHIP. There was about 10% of the number of attendees, but the tchotchkes and the door prizes were much better. In fact, they gave away a $45,000 Mercedes.
Same RX Advance. They were there again doing the same thing. And in fact, I didn't take any tchotchkes. I took Austin, Texas is evidently hosting AHIP next year, and they had these little like tie pins, for lack of a better word, that were LED and they'd circle, and I grabbed a bunch of those, and I give them to the, my kids are all in their 20s. I bring them tchotchke. It better have, Benjamin's face on it or something, otherwise they're not interested. But, yeah, so like Charles talks about merging the payers and the providers, I know that the themes that I had, and I read Charles's write-up, and the value-based or an investment arm. So, Guidewell, Florida, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, and then Cambia Health Solutions in the Pacific Northwest, another Blue Cross Blue Shield licensee. They had a good session there. And, the population health, where, the big umbrella of population health. So, those are some themes that I saw. Not so much interoperability, because I think that really ties back to the EHR, which is certainly important for payers, but not quite as, on point as it seemed to be at HIMSS.
Gotcha. So,
any other comments? I mean, what did I find exciting? You know what? I got to tell you, I was really disappointed in AHIP, and I'm going to run the risk here of being negative. Far.
I think we lost you again, Steve. So we're struggling pretty good here today. Usually it works itself out by now. All right, Joe, you do these things every week too with the podcasters, right?
A couple logistic things that I really didn't like. Like for instance, you couldn't see a lot of the slides and the presentations, and there was no
Yeah, what Steve is saying, and I think it's a function of size. HIMSS organization is so much bigger because they have to put on shows of 40,000 people. AHIP is maybe less organized in that way in terms of getting access to technology, getting to view the presentations online later, that kind of thing.
Right. Yep. No, you could definitely see a difference. And, of course, simple things like having some coffee available after 9 a.m. We found a machine for about 5 minutes and wait for some hostess or server to come by and offer me a drink, and then I give her a
coffee. So yeah, Steve's in and out. Steve, you're in and out pretty good on us here, I think. I don't believe it's just me based on some of the comments over here. Do you want me to try to kick you one more time and maybe reconnect?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know what I can do about my. I did my Ookla speed test right before this, and I had 17 megabit download. So I don't know what's going on here, guys.
This is crazy because I get one up and down.
All right. So Chuck, you were at this year's show too, and while we're waiting for Steve to try to call back in, and I'm not going to pick you up just yet, Michael, because I want to make sure that Steve's got an opportunity to jump back in. But Chuck, just because you were there, what was your experience? I know obviously we saw your BPM and workflow tweets, and you were a man on a mission as always there. Did you get to any of the events outside of your usual path there, or was it 100% BPM and workflow for you the entire week?
Well, I went to like the keynote. I did not attend any of the other education sessions. I believe Steve did. I was there on a exhibitor pass. I basically asked a bunch of folks I know, and one of them came through. By the way, you may hear a puppy occasionally in the background. We just got a beautiful little miniature schnauzer who I've been tweeting about occasionally. But anyways, back to the vibe. So based on, like HIMSS, for example, I'll go to educational sessions and exhibitors, and I've always found a great deal of disparity, divergence between the education sessions and the exhibit floor. Now, so here I'm only on the exhibit floor at HIMSS, so I'm not, or at AHIP, so I'm not sure, to what degree I can generalize. I will say that, and I'm trying to stay away from, kind of BPM workflow stuff. Yes. Thank you very much. It's funny. It's been 4 decades since I had a dog, and now it's bringing back a lot of wonderful childhood memories and joy. But what I do want to say is I bumped into a lady who's been to every single AHIP since, for 22 in a row, 22 AHIPs in a row. So I've been to 2. And wow. She used to work for AHIP in the education area, and she does consulting out of DC. And she said that AHIP used to be much, much larger. She said it was down this year. I'm not sure that it hit 40 or 4,000 this year, and it was around 4,000 last year. I tried to find an attendee estimate, published, but it wasn't. I could not find one, which usually means it's down a little bit. One of the things that I did do was I looked I search every single exhibitor website for some specific interests of mine, and I noticed that so I did this for the second year. I noticed that there was about a 1/3 churn. So that is 1/3 of the exhibitors last year, almost 200. I think there were about 200 last year, and 1/3 of them did not return this year, but they were more or less replaced. Although we were down probably about 10 exhibitors from last year. However, I will say that the lady who's been to a lot of and does consults specifically in the Payer area, she said she said it still felt like a very vibrant space, a lot of energy, a lot of money in play, a lot of folks concocting all kinds of plans, and we speculate. And I'm going to actually give you my hypothesis here, and then I'll probably sign off to try to encourage other folks, or maybe I'm just sucking up too much internet, and that's the problem that Steve is having. But this is the theory that we developed, and that is interoperability, or what I prefer to consider enterprise integration, which has a somewhat different emphasis. Basically, that's you're talking about payers, you're talking about providers, you're talking about third-party outfits that are trying to put things together. Where do you go if you're talking about integrating with other people and other sub-verticals and other sub-verticals? Well, you know what? HIMSS. And HIMSS hit, I believe, a record last year of over 41,000, and actually most recently this year, So I suspect that there are a lot of folks who maybe have to make a choice between AHIP and HIMSS. And HIMSS has a little bit of a history of going after areas that, like mobile or EHR. So I suspect that, that may account for some of that. So I a lot of energy, 2 data points, but, I do feel a little like, I'm like Steve said that sort of like the hymns of insurance. Well, guess what? That may not be a good thing for AHIP in terms of attendance every year. Right. What do you think, Steve? Did you hear any of that? Not sure. Anyway, Joe, Don, thoughts, yeah. And then I'll sign off.
I actually was going to kick over to you. I know we're jumping off on a little bit of a tangent here, but what are your thoughts on that? The churn, a third churn, is that typical? I know you do a lot of work on shows and promotion and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
That was for Joe?
Yep.
Oh, for me? Having not had a lot of experience with AHIP, I'll have to watch over the years. A third churn sounds like a lot to me, but I think that, when I was there last year with Steve and Chuck, what I noticed was there were a lot of people there for the first time. So maybe 20% or so just come and check it out each year. And that's it's probably the same number of vendors that come and check out HIMSS each year. But when there's 3,000 vendors, you don't really notice the 30 or so that are coming to check it out and don't show up the next year. Yep. The other thing is, I think that my opinion is the overall cost of HIMSS are much bigger than AHIP. You can go and stay at a small hotel around AHIP in Vegas for a reasonable price. When you go to HIMSS and you're bringing, your whole team basically, and you got to go to dinners every night and that kind of thing. I didn't get the the overproduced sense at AHIP and that's probably a negative assessment on my behalf of him. But I feel like HIMSS is way overproduced. We might even bumped into you, Don, at night. Steve and I tried to get into 3 or 4 different happy hours, and we couldn't get into the happy hours at HIMSS. You know, it's just so overproduced that it's hard to get a lot done.
You know, it's interesting, Joe. I kind of agree with you, and that's why I do think that there's potential to social media.
I don't know
because what we're doing right now is not overproduced. I mean, just see, you know what I mean? So I think that there's an interesting potential path forward for social media to bring back some authenticity to HIMSS, which I love dearly. It's the good and the bad.
I agree with you, Chuck. I'm the same. I think we all have a love-hate. It's such a hard week, and I go early and stay late. But it's 20-hour days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
this was my first year of that. It was rough.
I'm signing off. I look forward to hearing someone else.
All right. Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah.
So, Steve, it says audio only. Can we hear you now?
Yeah, I don't know. You tell me. Can you guys hear me? I heard Joe. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. This is just terrible. I mean, it's actually frustrating. I want to spank my monitor.
So let me redirect you, Steve, just because there was one topic in particular that I wanted to get to with you. And if this is the last one I get to ask you, I want to get to it. So in general, you've been focusing a lot on the social determinants of health. I've talked about it a bunch. I know you did hit some chat last week, I believe, on the topic. You were on the lookout at AHIP for what are the payers doing on that front. So what did you see? What did you not see that you wish you would?
Well, I think the social determinants and the behavioral health issues, I mean, technically, I believe they're different. Certainly, like all things, they touch on each other, influence each other. Tavener talked about it in her keynote, the opening day, talking about social determinants. And a couple of companies in consulting and trying to determine, what it is we can do for people in non-medical ways that can improve their health outcomes. Simple things. If grandma can't get to the appointment, she's not going to have that appointment, right? So could a Uber driver help her, or the diabetic that can't manage their blood sugar needs to learn a little bit about what they should and shouldn't be eating, and all these kind of things. It's pretty exciting. There was a company there, Health Leads, which is doing something in this area. I know there's another company out there called Healthify. I did not see them at AHIP, but they're doing something in this area, but not a lot of specifics as far as programs or vendors or tools. But you can tell just by Guidewell had some really good interviews there, and in fact, I listened to them on the way back. It seemed like the best part of my trip was driving up there and driving back, not actually when I was.
Lost you for a moment again here.
Was there determinants of health? Yeah. So
you're in and out, my friend. You're back right now.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, I just talked a lot. I think, I'd probably be better off just writing up a blog post and sharing it. Which I know you sent me some questions.
Yeah, no worries, man. If we can't work through it, normally by
minutes putting my responses up.
Yeah, normally by this point we've some of the stuff's ironed out, but yeah, obviously it's gonna keep hitting you. So if you want to just bounce out, that's perfectly fine. And we could try again another time.
All right. Well, rats.
So I'll throw out to you guys then. We'll redirect a little bit. Joe, if you want to hang out for a minute, if anybody else wants to chime in. The other side of this whole conversation was about this the digital health snake oil commentary that came out of the AMA conference last week. And I dug into it a little bit. I expected it just to be kind of headline fodder and really not have much behind it, but I really enjoyed some of the responses that I read. And the one in particular that I touched on in my post today that I'd like to share with you guys if you haven't seen it, and I think I'll pronounce his name right, is Sachin Jain from CareMore, their CEO. He wrote a post up on Forbes. I think it was actually a transcription of a talk he gave the day after or so. And he did a couple of really interesting things that I think are worthwhile. The first is he went and talked about where did this term snake oil even come from? And he gives the backstory of this was, railroads being built, and the Chinese immigrants had a remedy for arthritis and bursitis that actually worked really well. They pulled the oil from a Chinese snake, Chinese water snake, and were using it to treat the arthritis and joint pain, and it was really, really effective. And what happened afterwards is the bad actors got a hold of that, and being opportunistic, trying to make a quick buck, started watering down the product, using different things and calling it snake oil, and then basically promising that it was going to fix everything under the sun. And, basically the point he was making was that, the original product applied in the right situation to the right patient or the right person with the right needs worked out quite well. And the same is true of the digital health tools that are out there. And there's no one size fits all thing that's going to apply to everybody everywhere, and we can't make promises that you if you wear a Fitbit and you get this digital scale and these other things that all your health problems are going to go away. But applied in the right situations and wrapped around with the appropriate system of care, if you will, and the culture of care and he gave some examples of how this all goes down at CareMore. They can and are very, very effective. I really like the way he broke that down, the way he approached it. So I wanted to share that out here, and I think that's a fitting response to it, because to me it was a kind of a broad brush AMA gentleman, probably really frustrated with I'd suspect largely the EMR front, and kind of just lumped everything together. So I don't know, Joe, did you have any thoughts on that whole debate?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at, I've been podcasting over 2 years, almost every interview is a digital health company. Yeah. I have trouble with digital health. I think it's a marketing term that confuses the industry, like iHealth and then eHealth and then mHealth. Yep. We have health. Let's solve the problems. Let's not marketize it with marketing words. Just to what you said, Don, we got to solve problems from soup to nuts for a patient using what we have. And the people that will succeed are the ones that understand the workflow, that understand interoperability is important, and that bring the right technology to the game. I interviewed a gentleman named Nick Jalen last week and had him on our blab this Monday. You mentioned our blab, the Healthcare Podcaster blab. Nick designed a game to facilitate the conversation of end of life. It's a board game. It's the right technology. It doesn't need to be an iPhone. It doesn't need some hot piece of technology. It's a board game that's the perfect technology to facilitate the end of life conversation with family, caregivers, providers, and it does a great job.
That's awesome. Who was that, or what was the game called?
The company is Common Practice. The game is called The Gift of Grace. So thegiftofgrace.com. And if you go to Intrepid now, you can find 2 interviews with Nick to get some background, or just go to The Gift of Grace. I actually bought my copy yesterday, and it's on its way.
Yeah, that's the perfect example, because these things are all just tools, and some of them happen to be technology based, some of them aren't. And yeah, you tie them all together. You understand what the goals you're trying to achieve are, and you just use tools. And if sometimes you see a patient in person, awesome. If sometimes you see them on a computer and it works, awesome. It really doesn't make a difference as long as we're making we're having a positive effect on the patient.
Yeah. So, after spending 25 years on the provider side of healthcare, on the provider side, I still look at the IT departments now that we're 7 or 8 years past EMRs, and 80% of the staff are doing desktop PC servers, financial systems. Maybe 20% are involved in the EMR, but from a support perspective, not from a perspective of extending those systems so they integrate with mobile health solutions or digital health solutions or solutions or e-solutions. Yep. The IT departments and providers just don't have that time. Yep. So we've got vendors developing stuff, and they're kind of hoping that providers will glom onto it afterwards if it proves to be useful. But you've got to get the providers involved in the design. And, there's just not, providers are already understaffed. They don't have people to do important stuff like predictive analytics. So how are they going to do digital health with leading edge vendors?
Yeah, I hear you. The other thing that I was thinking about with all of this is that healthcare in general, heavily intermediated, basically demands a one-size-fits-all solution. Necessarily so, because if you're going to have a couple dozen payers and interacting with thousands of providers, and that's where the decisions are going to be made, and with a bulk of them made at the federal level with CMS, you have to go one size fits all. And I think the fact that now you've got patients who are out there looking for their own tools because they're paying out of pocket, and just generationally speaking, younger patients are going to be more interested in doing stuff this way. And it's easy now for entrepreneurs to spin up an app and to release that out in the app stores for both devices. It's a really easy transaction to facilitate. So now you're starting to see this kind of free market action where tools are coming out that haven't been approved by the doctors, and that maybe the doctors don't see the value in. But the doctors don't need to see the value in all of these things. If the patient finds it useful and finds it valuable and they choose to use it, they're going to be the ones that dictate which one of these apps sticks around. And that's going to dictate which ones potentially show up at the doctor's office and conversations and whatnot. And on the flip side, it's, in my opinion, it's okay for the doctor to decide whether or not they want to serve those types of patients. In any other business, you you kind of choose the type of customers you want to work with, and you work with them. So I think it's just a change of mindset, because now, like I said, you've got this kind of free market stuff happening where, to a large extent, it just hasn't before in healthcare. So, absolutely. Curious if you had any thoughts on that.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. Again, I go back to digital health. To me is a marketing word. A buddy of mine, through my consulting time, would talk to, when we'd be looking at products, we'd see all these PowerPoint slides, and we'd walk out of meetings after huge efforts trying to make a relationship with a vendor, and he said all they have is marketecture. It's basically just PowerPoint slides. Yeah. Digital health to me is just marketecture. It's a word that doesn't mean anything, and picture's worth a million words. Sometimes a phrase is worth a million words, but in the most cases, these digital health apps aren't worth a million words. They're worth 10 words.
Right.
And they do better not to be associated with the digital health terminology, and just say, hey, we help pancreatic cancer patients. We help diabetes patients. We help end-of-life conversations, whatever the application is.
Yep, I'm with you. But the beauty of it, again, is that with the patients being the direct kind of deciders of which products they're going to use and which ones they aren't, those crappy ones should get sorted out. And that's sometimes it might have a few adverse outcomes, but in the aggregate, you would hope that really good products will help a lot of people, and the junk will go away.
Yeah, if I were a developer of a digital health and I wanted to develop a digital health app, I would look for vibrant communities of patients. And vibrant communities of patients hopefully will be connected the communities of doctors. I remember 25 years ago, my mother has lupus. She was the president of the American Lupus Society. There was a vibrant community of patients and doctors that were connected. And back then it was offline. And even today, the lupus community is very well connected online now. And, you know, if you can't find a community like that where you can collaborate, I would probably choose to work on something else.
Gotcha. Yeah, there was a great quote that I heard from Seth Godin on a podcast or something a few months ago that's been, you know, just echoing in my brain. It's find products for your customers, not customers for your products. And, you know, the way you just put that, that's how it registered to me, is to go to these vibrant communities, identify something that they would find valuable, and then deliver that to them. And now you've got an engaged community who's, you know, likely online, likely ready to work with these types of technology tools, and know how to engage with the doctors. Find them a product, solve a problem for them, and you got a really nice leg up on getting started.
Yeah, to put all that together is really expensive, and a lot of times you'll find innovators outside of healthcare. They'll have some great ability to develop tech, but outside of having the good requirements from the good community and understanding what's really valuable versus what some engineer that can do some coding thinks that is valuable, you know, there's a long gap between how fast you're going to be successful there.
Yeah, good, excellent advice for sure. All right. Well, I mean, that's pretty much what I wanted to get through today. You got anything else you want to throw out there before we break?
No, I appreciate you letting me jump in. I'm sorry Steve was having technical difficulties. I'm glad I was able to be here. I was looking forward to hearing what he had to say.
Bailed me out. So, yeah, thanks to you, Steve, too. I don't know if you're still listening. Sorry you had trouble, but I appreciate you coming on. We'll catch up another time. And thank you, Chuck, for jumping in, and Michael, and everyone else for watching. Next week, we have Justin Smith, the Doc Smitty, coming on. You know him. And we're going to have him coming on to talk about the clinic that he is currently building with a lot of patient feedback. He actually built a panel of patients from his social media communities, and they are providing active feedback throughout the build cycle of this clinic, which I think is awesome. And you'll see as we dig into it, the general approach that they take to innovation at Cook Children's Hospital down in Fort Worth. And it's a good model. It's one to think about. It's one that I'll say embraces failure, or at least is prepared to accept that that's a very real possibility and work around it. And I'm really excited to have him on. So that'll be next week. And the week after that, we'll be going with what I'm calling a startup showcase. And we're going to bring on a startup that is fairly early stage and have them talk about basically what problem it is that they're trying to solve, why it's important, and in a sense, give their pitch. And what I'm going to ask all of you to do is to come on and to provide them with feedback, to ask questions, et cetera. We can do that in the side panel. We can have people shuffle in on camera as well if they'd like. The first one that we're going to be doing is on July 6th. It's a company called Harmony Health. They're based in New Orleans, and they are trying to launch effectively a direct primary care solution for the Medicaid population, but doing so by partnering with the hospital. So they're looking to actually take the primary care services off the hands, if you will, of the hospital for kind of a fixed fee PMPM type setup, and manage it like a direct primary care type of organization. So an interesting approach, one I haven't seen. I know we cover a lot of DPC on this show and in the community, so I hope you all can come in and ask questions and provide your feedback on that front. And then, hey, there's a Doug. How you doing? So we got a couple of those startup showcases coming, and we've got a bunch of other shows in the works too. So I'm hoping to get a nice calendar built up and put out to you guys, so you'll know what's coming in the weeks ahead. So stay tuned for that. So what's the dog's name, Joe?
Daisy.
Daisy?
Yeah.
Nice. My mom had a poodle that looked exactly like her, maybe a little bit smaller, black though.
Yeah, Daisy's a golden doodle, about 22 pounds.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. So,
All right.
So you need to get her a Twitter account like Whereflow's dog. What's he call him? Jet, the health IT dog.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks again, Joe. Thank you, everyone. And we'll
have a great week. Thanks, Tom.
Have a great day.